She just wanna work and pay her bills. Fuck up on a man who keep it real. That's right. She just want her girls to know the deal. They do. She just told her boss just how she feel. Fuck you. She just hit the club up on a Thursday. Told the bartender I ain't feeling thirsty. Took a couple shots just like it's her birthday. Hit the tree up just like it was Earth Day.
Saw her at a club in a Lambo. She don't eat no pork, she gonna have no. Got these niggas shooting shots, call them Rambo. Wanna let them know it's not a man's world. They try to tap it and they black, call them Sambo. They try to tap it and they white, call them CIA. She know the truth about the game and she don't play. She know the truth about the fame, so she okay. You like blah blah blah, she like
dollar signs.
You like rent this here, she like
I'm buying mine.
She got her besties back when it is trying times. She used to boost the pack when it was flying time. All around the world, see those pretty girls. Yeah, lights, camera, action. She ain't even.
What's good, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of We Don't Sip Tea, We Drink Wine. I'm your girl, Miss JLH, and I have two amazing, lovely guests here with me today. Please go ahead and introduce yourselves. Let them know where you are, where you're from, who you are, where you're from, and what you're about. Van, would you like to go first?
Sure. All right. I'm Van Everett, host of the Scenario Radio Show, Real Talk with a Playlist. I am currently based out of Tennessee, and I do the Scenarios podcast and radio show also, as is the name would indicate. So yeah.
Awesome. Okay, I was like, where is he at in Central Time? I wasn't sure. Okay, awesome. Welcome. And Dominic, want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name is Dominic Joran. I'm actually the owner and operator of Slum Studio, main production company. My main focus is photography, cinematography, and just all creative work.
Awesome. Welcome, you two. So we are here to talk about season 3 of Atlanta, both episode 1 and 2, because that is what they premiered this year. Finally, right? After 15 years.
Yeah, no, it took a long time, but I'm finally glad it's actually here.
Right. Actually, so episode 1 is called 3 Slaps, and the introduction to the episode, like the way they describe the episode is, wow, it's been a minute. I mean, I like this episode about the trouble kid, but we waited 50 years for this. So I just thought it was funny, the way that they described all of the episodes this season. It was kind of like the writer himself saying what the audience probably would say about stuff. So what did y'all think about it?
I thought it was considering what the season ended up being, I thought it was a really interesting way, a good way to start things off. I mean, you couldn't have known that from the beginning. You know, it didn't tie in at first, but considering what we got in the overarching season, it was like, okay, I see where they were going there with how they started the season, even though it, obviously was absent all of the main characters.
Facts. Okay, so a little background. The first episode is a standalone episode. It only features the main character at the very end of the episode, but it starts off with us in Lake Lanier talking about the story and the history of Lake Lanier, and a black and white man are in a boat and they're just talking about the history of that. And then we're instantly taken to a black kid waking up in his bed, and his name is Laquarius, and pretty much it's a play on the real Devontae Hart story and his siblings and what they went through when they were in foster care. But in this episode, it's a different spin on the ending of what really happened. So it was really interesting to see just how that worked out. But also, like you said, what did this episode mean? Dominic, what are your thoughts on episode 1, just the opening and stuff?
Oh no, because when first, again, like waiting for season 3, it threw me off how none of like the main cast wasn't in it, and just Donald Glover was in it at like the very end of it. So it threw me off. Like, wow, I'm like, what are they doing with this? And then just talking about the Lake Lanier story, and also just different like hints and themes that they use within there. Just because also in that beginning scene, it's actually funny because it's one of the few funny parts about that episode is they actually recreate a similar like viral video. If I don't know if you guys have seen it, it's actually two dudes in the boat and he's looking over. He's like, "Hey, we're getting close to the edge, man. Come on." I don't know if you guys seen that, but I know
Mm-mm.
they
No, I haven't
took
seen that one.
inspiration. Yeah, it's like a viral video of like a dude like going close to the edge, almost like going run the boat off of like a cliff or something. But they,
Okay.
I know it took inspiration a little bit from that, just because I know the director they like to do different like pop culture references within the different episodes that they create.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was giving me very much like Jason Wood vibes. Like, okay, what's going to happen on this boat? So I
Oh
didn't
yeah,
know
no.
where they was going with it.
Oh yeah, no. It was a trip, and then how it switches to that to Aquarius waking up in bed. It was just like, where are we going with? It was just like, okay, where are we going with this? And then it takes off into the episode and everything, and how uh, he decides to be acting up in class when he know damn well he shouldn't be.
Yeah, exactly. What did y'all think about that opening though? Well, Van, what did you think about the opening with the white guy and the black guy in the
Um,
boat at the lake?
Yeah, I thought again, I thought it was really it definitely was shot in a way where it gave a horror vibe. Like that was what they were shooting for. So that like you were talking about the whole feeling of like Jason and all of that. They wanted you to feel horror from it
Yeah.
before anything horrific happened. It just felt as if it was building to something. The fact that it was shot at night at the lake in the dark, just everything about the angles and everything. And so it grabbed me because of the way that there are all those different layers a lot of times in some of the episodes of Atlanta. Of course, when the white guy whose name was Earn, which is
Oh
important.
yeah,
Um,
somebody did point that out.
yeah, his name is Earn, and he appears a couple other times throughout the season.
Hmm.
When he's talking, it just makes you want to pay really close attention to what it is
Hmm.
he's saying because you're like, okay, I know that there's something here that I'm later on I may want to try to grab a hold to. So I was just, I was really, I think, coupled with the idea that you're paying such close attention, and there's already this horror element to it, that this feel, then it just sort of builds the anticipation even more because you're figuratively speaking leaning in to make sure you're catching what he's talking about as he's talking about this relationship between whiteness and blackness and the story of Lake Lanier. So yeah, I thought it was dope.
Do you think within the beginning part of the story, does that like really work its way into the story with Laquarius and the whole behind the scenes of that adoptive story and stuff?
Um, well, let me put it like this. Here's the theory that I came up with after
Okay.
after a few episodes of Atlanta this year. After watching a few episodes, it occurred to me that because it's so much like an anthology this year. It's so
Hmm.
there are so many episodes that aren't based on the main characters.
Right.
And I was trying to figure out, well, okay, what's the connective tissue here? And the thing that connected it for me was this idea of the relationship between black Americans and white Americans, black people and
Mm.
white people in America, which and that relationship is centered in capitalism. It's always centered in capitalism. So the thing that kept coming up to me was this question: who pays and who owes? and
Mhm.
and that was the question that kept. So even so, when Ern was talking in the beginning, and he's talking about black people attempting to buy their way into whiteness, and
Mhm.
white people assuming whiteness would protect them from the curse of racism. That for me, yeah, it does tie in. When I kept thinking about that theme later, it didn't when I first originally watched it, but yeah, when I looked at that and then looked at what's happening with the child and the fact that there are these two white women who, if you remember at the end of it, when they're talking about the money they had gotten, how everything seemed to be going their way and nobody
Mhm.
seemed to stop them. It's this idea that, and the fact that they would be willing to drive those children off a cliff instead of thinking that there's a better life for them, that speaks to the idea of simply thinking of Black people simply as a commodity. And that comes back to that thing of who owes and who pays. And you'll keep seeing that come up, is that, and that's just the nature of the relationship of Black people and white people in America, is that it's difficult for white people to see us, even in their best moments, to see us beyond being a commodity. We're either a commodity or a liability, and and so that's how they end up seeing us in relation to their humanity rather than our humanity. And so, yeah, it in that way it does speak to what he was talking about at the beginning when he's on Lake Ernst talking about at the beginning on Lake Lanier.
Okay, what about you, Dominic? What's your theories of it? The two like equating to each other?
I agree with Van, the whole relationship between like Black and white Americans, because they told you the story of Lake Lanier, which typically you probably think of more of like the redneck Republican type white people who would do something of like drowning a whole town and sinking them under a lake, whereas you have like the more liberal white people, like the two women who adopt all the Black children. They did just as terrible stuff to them, if not worse.
Right.
Because I'm about to say, if you see through it, like, and they didn't even try to learn the choreographer's name. They just changed his name to, oh, Larry sounds better.
Right.
We're going to call you Larry. That's fine.
Yes.
And then having them essentially just working in the field. He tries to sing a song. She's like, nah, I don't like that. Let's have you sing some good old Negro spirituals. That sounds better. That fits better
that
right
was
now.
wild.
Yeah, and the whole thing of like how they were able to get to this point and no one stopped them. Like they could do this, and no one stopped to think, maybe they shouldn't. Maybe they don't have the best intentions. Whereas, and then you see the ending result of that, them trying to kill all the kids.
Yeah. And this story, it ends up being that the kids survive, but in real life the kids don't survive. And they actually don't find Devontae Hart's body, so they're really not sure. So it was real unfortunate. What I got from the season, which is so crazy, I saw what y'all saw too as well, and I did get that. However, my depiction of kind of like the whole season ultimately is that we can't ever escape our reality as Black people. No matter like what type of situation we're in or where we are, what we're doing, it's like our reality is that we're always going to be seen for the color of our skin first, or viewed a certain way or treated a certain way just because we're Black. So that's how I felt like being us going to Europe. I said us like we're in the show. But the show just being in Europe and not in Atlanta is like a big thing, because typically back in the day, especially Black people would leave America and seek refuge in other countries, because even though anti-Blackness is everywhere, it just wasn't as bad as it was here. So that's how I took it from them even going to Europe. It's like Black people be needing an escape, and leaving the country sometimes is that. And but unfortunately, even though we left, we still want to face those harsh realities of being Black. So that's what this season definitely meant for me, especially episode 1 and 2. Why do you think that they started episode 1 the way that they did?
I think that I honestly I can't speculate with any kind of credibility about why they did it. I wouldn't have any idea, but it seems that they really wanted to sell this idea that that it's not really that the series you're about to watch is not really about a bunch of guys in Europe touring with a rapper. That's not what you're actually watching. I know that's those who the characters are, but that there is something else that is being discussed here, and I think this kind of jars you out of what, that expectation a little bit. Obviously, a lot of people responded. They, responded not necessarily negatively, but they were definitely put off slightly by the idea that, wait a minute, what happened to the people we've been waiting all these years for,
Right.
and why aren't we hearing more about them? But yeah, I think it was a great way to establish that what you're about to partake in is not a story about three guys and a girl in Europe, black people in Europe. It's about something else. Even when you're
Mhm.
watching them, it's about something else.
Yeah. That I can see that. Dominic, why do you think that they chose to change the narrative of the heart story, the real story?
Just because it was very dark. It, it's it's not like a happy story, so they wanted to change it to be more, just change a bad situation to something that would be more positive, because I doubt they would want to show like three black children just dying in LA because some white ladies couldn't handle the shit. Like that's something that they don't want to portray. So because if I see that, so I would hope that like they would escape, found better family, not died in that situation. But that's why they wanted to change it up. Just because we have enough news about us dying every single day, so it's like we need a little bit positive, even if it's in a story that we grade, like in Atlanta.
Yeah, I agree. They end the episode showing Ern waking up from a dream. Do you feel like he was dreaming about that story, or like what did that end scene really mean?
It felt like they left it vague, as to whether or not he had awakened from dreaming about that story. Because I mean, it could have been that.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was left vague enough that if that's the way you want to interpret it, then definitely. But
Mm-hmm.
they just wanted, at the same time, after giving you a full story, absent any of the characters, I guess they felt like it was a good idea to at least, close things out
Tie
with
it
you
back
seeing
in.
somebody you're familiar with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts, Dominic?
Yeah, I can see them trying to leave it vague. That way, again, it gives more interpretation to the audience to be like, okay, maybe it was a dream, maybe it wasn't, maybe it was something else or whatever. That way, people can put their own meaning or spin on what that whole episode mean to Earn in the grander scheme of things of the season.
Yeah, I can agree with that. Okay, so then episode 2 goes right into it. It's called Center Class is Coming to Town. Then they do the description for this one says, I think everybody knows blackface ain't cool anymore. They be trying too hard to go viral. What do you think they meant by that description?
I think.
Uh,
I
pe-
think. Oh, go ahead.
uh,
Oh.
uh, pretty much as people be doing the most to want to go viral, whether it's trying to act as black as possible or put on blackface to be like, because at this point everyone should know that blackface is not okay, it's not a thing they should be doing, but like people be doing the most just to go viral. They'll do the most stupidest, like cringiest, racist things just to go viral, just to get that little bit of fame, and
Mhm.
people will just be doing the most just to do that.
Yeah. What about you, Van?
Yeah, it felt like when you read a lot of the episode descriptions that what they were attempting to do is to kind of undercut what the responses they knew that they were going to be getting
Yeah.
from a lot of people. It's like they knew that there was going to be people out here who would see what they were doing and interpret it a certain way, and they wanted to kind of take some of the teeth out of it before it even started. And I
Mhm.
guess on some level it actually worked. Because actually didn't recognize that they were doing that. I hadn't even read any of the descriptions until maybe about 4 episodes in, and then I was like, wait a minute, what is this? And it made me go back to look at the other ones. But yeah, I think they were just trying to undercut some of that, because especially since, as I'm sure we'll talk about in a minute, when you look at that episode and you talk about the whole Black Pete thing, I
Mhm.
think I think that there are people who probably miss that we kind of miss what actually is happening there with the whole Black Pete thing, because we're Americans and we live,
Yeah.
and we, blackface means something entirely different for us, and rightfully so. But there's a message even in the idea that they would go there and that's what they would see.
Absolutely, absolutely. So the funny thing is, okay, so we get to this episode, we open with Ern getting his stuff together, trying to hurry up and rush. He's sick as hell. He realizes he got a lot of stuff to take care of. But even though we're in a different country, different city, we're still dealing with the same BS that we was dealing with in Atlanta. So that's why I loved it, because it doesn't make a difference. So I really felt like it portrayed a few different things that I think are really key to this season too. It showed that anti-blackness is global. It's not just a US thing. And then you can take somebody out the hood, but you can't take the hood out of somebody. So, and Paperboy showed that to the max. Him being in jail was the funniest thing. I loved it. That was like my favorite scene.
Yeah, and the way he was treated there, like they were very, very accommodating. Like it's like, wow, this, if you got to go to jail, that's the kind of jail you want to go to.
Facts, facts. What was your favorite scene this episode?
Hmm. Yeah, I think the jail. I think the combination of the well, really, with I think the thing that drew my attention most was the fact that you get to see Ern for the first time being competent, like watching him in action as a manager and pretty much as a problem solver in every capacity, just really being competent, like finding a way to get everything done. And it's like wow, okay, so this is that it showed progression in the story. But it's interesting how once they get into that, you find that even though he's putting out fires, you got Paperboy creating fires.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. What about you, Dominic? What was your favorite?
I probably have to say the jail scene, just because I was not expecting it to be like, oh, he has a full like room and board, has a whole like room service. He can order, giving recommendations on different meals they can have. I'm like, damn, if I go to jail, I just need to go over there.
Yeah.
But
Yes.
I'll probably say the second has to be the scenes with like Darius and Van, just because we never really like seen that dynamic between the two. And
Mhm.
honestly, I just like Lakeith Stanfield's character. Like he does like an amazing job as an actor in a lot of things that he do, but especially in Atlanta, I like just the like kind of like his just like weirder outgoing personality of like, she found the address. He's like, this is fate. Let's go follow it,
Word.
and goes on this wild adventure.
And I think that speaks to what Van was saying, because again, we're in a different country and we're doing something different, and so now we're seeing different things that we've never really witnessed before, and you get there and it's like a mercy killing, and they do that over there. So it's just like you didn't even think about that. It's just like, well, damn, you just killing yourself.
Yeah, and I think that's the whole quote unquote Tupac scene, and
Yeah.
and the Black Pete scene. The thing that's the thing about this thing about being in Europe for them, and that they kind of jump right into, is that, like you mentioned before, anti-blackness is a worldwide thing. It's a global thing. But it looks a lot different in a lot of different countries. And there are instances where what we see isn't actually as much anti-blackness as we think it is, but it's only because the only experience we have is as Americans, and that's like prime anti-blackness. It's like they've exported the best version of it. The most effective version of anti-blackness comes from America. It's like,
Yeah.
baseball, apple pie, and white supremacy.
Right.
So when we see like, for instance, Black Pete and the people who are doing the whole Black Pete thing, although they're doing it completely insensitive to what that would mean to Americans, they also don't share the same history as white people in America. You know what I mean? So for them, it even even in it being racist, it's not even the same thing. It's not.
Right.
So, but of course, Earn and Paperboy and them, they see it. They see it as people from Atlanta. They don't, and it's like, I'm not. It's a whole crowd of them out there. I'm not going out there to perform for these people. It's like
Right.
and for them, they don't even make the connection. And I see that in the same thing with just the discomfort of being a couple of black people in a room full of white people standing around a bed with a black man being killed.
Yeah.
And it's like, ooh, I no matter who it is, it's just like there's no context for that where that works, emotionally for us as black people living in America who know just the history of white people standing around black people being killed.
Right.
It
Right.
just doesn't, so it doesn't ring the same. Whereas those people, although they're emotional about it because they may feel however they feel, they casually don't even think about the context that we as black people would see it in.
Right,
Yeah.
right. And the fact that Van is evaluating her life while a death is about to occur was just like also a wild scenario as well. It was like, oh wow, she doesn't even realize, I guess, what's really about to happen
Yeah.
as she's evaluating super life choices.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting how they play. Like when she hits the woman hits the button, and it's like, I mean, I had no idea that's what was about to happen, and they just let the camera linger on it. They let you stay with that discomfort of watching this man die, and everybody's just standing there. And you're like, are they actually going to go through with this? And Van, that's the expression she has, and but they see it all the way through, and it's crazy that they would even go that route with on video to show you that discomfort level of just the whole thing.
Agreed. I think that's the beginning of our seeing our decline of Van. But also I do want to point out too, something else that you said, Van, that Paperboy, like you said, Earn is growing and you see a substantial growth as him as a manager this first season, because even though he's sick, he's still out here doing his thing. But you also see Paperboy really coming into being famous. What did you think about his growth, Dominic, this season as an artist?
Yeah, because it showed him finally growing and realizing, I'm famous now. Because before, like season 2, he was fighting being famous so hard. He wanted to still be that dude in the trenches selling drugs and everything. But he, in this season, he finally accepted, I'm famous. I got all this money. I got all these fans. Let me take advantage of it. Let me actually show that I'm the superstar that everyone is telling me out to be. And I'm glad he actually finally grew into that to actually accept being famous and just throw in a stack of euros as soon as he gets out.
Exactly. The women in his room, him like the hotel room being messed up, just like all famous rapper like stardom stuff is like he's really just coming into his own.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And then bossing
Yeah.
Earn around because he wasn't really saying much to Earn like that either before. I think they both have finally come into their own positions of like what they demand of each other. So that was good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so one of the last things I really, really wanted to talk about because to like tie it all in together. So at the end we see the club. Well, for one, it's a hip-hop show, so overseas I don't ever think about hip-hop being huge in other countries. I only think about hip-hop being big with black people because it's our thing. I know it's big with like like now it's the biggest genre nationally or whatever, but I don't really like that. So just knowing that like other countries is really fucking with hip hop too, like that. It's like, oh, okay, this is nice, I guess. But it just goes to show. But now they're all in Black Pete costumes and Saint Pete costumes. My bad, but they're all in blackface in this concert. And then, so Paperboy says he doesn't want to do the show. So now Earn has to go tell this promoter they're not doing the show. He's sick. They're just going to give back the money. So the promoter comes after him and he beats up another guy he thinks look like Earn because he's in blackface. And it was just like, what? What were y'all thoughts on that?
That was that thing again. Who owes and who pays?
Yeah.
Between white and black people, and the relationship that we have. It was a situation where you see a black guy who's like, okay, well, we're not going to do this because of what it will cost us to go on stage, not financially, but it'll cost us something. And either way, you as a white person, you're still going to get your money. No
Mm-hmm.
matter what happens. It's like, no matter what happens, you profit from this. Whether we go out here and suffer or we don't, you profit. Yet you're angry. So what are you angry about?
Yeah,
You're,
exactly.
you're angry because we're showing autonomy, that we decide that we're going to do what we would want to do. So
Right.
yeah, that was the thing that stuck out for me the most about it, and that any black face would do once he was angry.
Yeah. Yes. What did you think about that last scene, Dominic?
Oh, yeah, I agree with like Rand how like I don't know how they were going. Like it was weird how they just had all the like blackface in the crowd was like morally like they're all like, nah, we out, we getting up out of here. This ain't it. And then realistically, yeah, he would have been fine. He would have made more money just off of insurance, even though he put out all this work. But like he was just mad and just he found someone who looked close enough to earn that he could just whoop his ass real quick, get out all that
Yeah.
anger.
It was like one of those things that once again you know that they're overseas, but that was just something like so close to home that would happen back here if we were home. So it's like, is it any different for real for us? And so once again, it just tied back to what I felt like my theme was for this show, was just like, it's a harsh reality for us. Like no matter where we are, that's our reality. So it just kind of sucks.
Yeah.
So what did y'all think of like overall? What do you give like these two opening episodes? How do you feel? It was like a strong. Do you feel like it was a strong two first episodes for the season?
I do, definitely. I feel like it was great. I probably couldn't speak more highly of either of those episodes. And I think the balance of having, I think it was important that they showed both of those episodes out the gate, because you couldn't have led with that first episode and then have people wait an entire week for another, for the other, knowing that they hadn't seen any of the actual, main characters of the show. It would make for an awkward week for people, and the outroar, I think, would have been something different. But having them both together at the beginning, it sort of balances itself out.
Absolutely. Dominic, what was your like favorite thing as far as like these two episodes being out? Like what, as far as a whole, what was your favorite part about both episodes?
My favorite part was just them showing just how they're going to make it more of an anthology series. Just showing that first episode with three slaps, and then the second episode with finally Ern and all the gang actually finally in Europe doing their thing. Ern finally stepping up to him being the manager and everything, and then also in the three slaps, just the whole crazy scenario of it. Also showing that some white people can't really cook that dry ass chicken that we're serving. Like I would have starved too seeing that, but all in all, I enjoyed how they set it up to be able to set up for the rest of the season. These was like two solid episodes to show. Like it showed character growth in everyone. Ern finally stepping up as a manager. Paperboy finally living up to the superstar lifestyle. Darius just being Darius, and then just Van finally Van just tried to essentially try to find herself a little bit more in Europe.
Yeah. What about you, Van? What were some of your favorite parts of these two episodes?
Definitely the entirety, the whole interaction between Laquarius and his parents, so to speak, his two mothers, adoptive mothers. That was just really interesting. Everything, he's like, "Where's my washcloth?" And they're like, and he looks, and the other kids kind of look up, like, "Oh no, bro, it ain't even." It's like they already know, because everybody's asked that question. It's like for them, it's like, No, we only use soap, and so it's stuff like that. Like he was mentioned, like Dominic mentioned, the chicken, just all of the culture shock of these two. Of on one level, it feeling like, well, it's about the differences between black people and white people, but on another level, it's like, no, this is just as much about two people who just aren't competent and shouldn't be raising anyone's children. And
Yes.
so I thought that just watching that play out was interesting because had they, because had those two women been black women and they were didn't have the things that white kids were accustomed to, they would have been thought of as of unfit.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think that whole interaction, just watching all of that play out, was probably the most interesting thing about both of those two episodes. Again, I like the second one, but yeah, that was the thing that really jumps out to me the most.
Yeah, definitely. I Dominic was saying, just watching the growth of the characters was really interesting. Just seeing that Ern is like acting like a boss now is really good because Ern was just stressing me out. And I just felt like he just was down on himself all the time, but he just had to make stuff happen. And look, he made it happen. They're in Europe. So I love it. And I'm just excited to see what they're going to do for season 4. I don't know if it's going to be more standalone episodes. Are we going to get a full season of the cast? We still going to be in Europe. You don't know so far. So it's very interesting to see where they're going to go with season 4. But I like season 3 a lot, and I like what they did with these first 2 episodes. All right, y'all. Did anybody else want to add anything else about episode 1 and 2? Was wild. A lot of people didn't like it.
Yeah, I think the thing is, I get it that some people didn't like it, and the thing is, one is because obviously they weren't getting what they were accustomed to. But I also think if a lot of those people went back and looked at the previous seasons,
Mm-hmm.
that they would recognize that a lot of what they were watching wasn't about what they thought it was. I mean, of course there's a plot that's happening with the main characters and things of
Mm-hmm.
that nature. But there's a reason that we've went all this time following Paperboy's rap career and never actually hearing him rap and never, actually seeing him on stage or none of that. Because in the greater scheme of what the show is trying to deliver, it doesn't matter. It's not the point. It never was. So
Mm.
in a lot of instances, that's the same thing. I mean, like the Earn story and the things that are happening with Earn and his growth and his progression, it's part of the story, but it's not really the heart of the story. It's just a vehicle for us to be able to discuss some other things, like when as we'll see with this season with him and Van and what's going on there. It's like those characters, it's a lot like watching a Spike Lee movie. If you ever watch Spike Lee's movies, you'll recognize that Spike Lee doesn't write characters. Spike
Yeah.
Lee writes, what he does, he writes agendas and wraps them in human flesh. It's like
Yeah.
there's an agenda there, and then that person is to carry out that agenda, and so these things will happen, and it'll get you talking about this idea rather than the person more. And
Yeah.
that's really what a lot of Atlanta really is when you really dig into it.
I can agree with that. Dominic, do you have any final thoughts?
No. All I know is all I know is this. I love this show. I'm glad they finally came out with season 3. Season 4, I'm ready for it to see where the story takes us. If they're going to stick with the insult, do a more anthology, or just do straight up just a whole season just of the main crew. But either way, like, this is a great show where it does that perspective flip of doing like the anthology, because again, in the first few seasons they did something similar to that, like the mock BT segment where they did something similar to that, where they just had like some characters in there, and then now they just took it full steam where it's just standalone episodes. But all in all, love this show, honestly.
Yeah, same here. I can't wait to see where they go with it too. So, all right, y'all, we'll be back to talk about episode 3 for sure. But make sure y'all share your social media. Let the people know where they can find you, how they can support you, follow you, that type of thing. Dominic?
You can follow me at Slevin Studio, SLVIN Studio, on every platform: Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. You can find me there.
All right, and then
You can find me on this at the scenarioradioshow.com, or the Scenario Radio Show is pretty much available in all forms of social media: Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. Just look for at Scenario Radio or at Scenario Radio Show, and we're out there.
Hey, thank y'all so much for being my guest today, and I look forward to talking to y'all about episode 3.
All right.
All right,
All right.
peace, y'all.
Peace.
Bye.